Um, uh, uh, yeah.
No worries. Nope, I'm pretty familiar with this process, so not a problem. People can also add in replies to those, right? So like if I had an update that maybe I want to add in later, you can add in that little reply in that box underneath the actual. Yeah, I sort of just think of the GitHub as a place to store meeting notes. So that's why, that's the way I sort of think about it. So if you need to make a correction or an addition or something to the meeting notes, that's where you would go to the GitHub. But general communication between the team should happen really in the Slack channel. I know that I use Slack in my full-time job, so it's easy to have just different workspaces there, and that's why I'm always in Slack anyway. So I will always see the updates in Slack for sure.
Yeah, well, I had notes in my little Google Doc, but now, of course, I can't find it. One of them was, it had to do with the LRS. Which one was that? grass blade. But I made that comment in Slack. That was one of them. And the reason I ask is because of the notes that were in GitHub and looking for an LRS. And I had a comment. I'm like, do I put it here or here? I'll put it in. And as I was typing in Slack, I said, I think I'm answering my question. I should put it in Slack. That was one. And yeah. And the other one was, I think we were supposed to talk about goals for the team, our personal goals. And I had it was written somewhere. Yeah, I didn't put it in Slack, but my personal goal is to learn LiveCode.
Ryan, where's the link to the GitHub page? To that GitHub page? I'm trying to type it in and I'm not getting there. Okay, that'd be great. Okay, thanks.
Oh.
I'm new to GitHub, so I was just trying to like follow along with it, and like I know you can work together, right? Besides getting this, you can share and pull. I guess I went through the tutorial trying to see how you can commit and pull and grab things over by working with one another. Am I right about that? I mean, I didn't know if we were going to do that because I was having little problems with it. It was, I think, a couple of glitches. So I was wondering. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I meant that. Now, sorry to interrupt. Now, do you, like I was trying on the GitHub, Martin put up a doc. Do we need to clone our repository on LiveCode from the cohort up there? Because I had a little bit of a problem with that. Uh-huh. Clone. Okay. To fork it. Yeah.
No, no. It's no. I guess like I don't know. I'm having a little difficulty myself because so at my company we also use GitHub, right? But what we do is we use like a third-party application. It's called IntelliJ, and it's just way too expensive, and it's not even don't even worry about that. But the way that most like professional development teams work with GitHub is they use this other software, like Eclipse, for example, is like I think it's free, and I think it integrates with GitHub. You can download that and set up your GitHub credentials on there, and you can then pull and commit changes to your GitHub repository through there. And it's not like, so that's why, although Brian, you're going through this and you're showing people what the web interface looks like, most developers just use it through that other software to like get the changes and then push the changes out to your GitHub repository and not actually go through the web interface.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, because then you can also add in when you check in your changes, so to speak, you also can add a comment about like what it is that you changed with that update. So then when you look at the history of of a single file, you can see, oh, okay, I see that Brian made this change, and like, then like, oh, Izzy made this other change, and you can see the whole history of changes that were put in place. Well, a fork, yeah. So the clone, like you said, is basically a whole independent copy of the code itself, right? So it has no connection to this repository at all. The fork option is basically for when you want to work on something, uh, and then you know eventually that you want to put it back in, like you want to eventually check it in. So, as an example, if you have, let's say we had like a full featured application, and let's say you wanted to try adding in this new extra cool feature, you could fork it, work on it as long as you need to, while other people are still making updates in the main application, and then try to then fork it back in later on. And basically, you would have to merge your changes in, but eventually, the idea is with forking that you're going to check it back into the application versus cloning, which is again a whole independent copy that has nothing to do with the original application. No, no, I can't see it, but I know that we have it. I did see it in the chat though.
Yeah, Brian, I'm copying that URL for GitHub and I pasted it and it says 404 error, no such page. Everybody else? Yeah, I'm in my account. Okay.
Try the link that I just posted in, see if that one works. I was getting a 404 with the link that Brian posted as well.
it is. Yes, thank you. Well, I got.
Good.
Yeah, I've got a couple little apps that do some API post and that sort of thing. No, I think I can pull something up. You can do a little screen share if you'd like. Yeah, looks like it. I tried to make my display larger. I tried to maximize I got a 27-inch iMac, so it's a pain in the butt to share unless I sort of fiddle with the settings. So I think everything should look okay. This is a simple little tool. Simple. It's kind of grown over the years, but part of my day job, I work at Indiana University for the law school and maintain some of our web servers. So this is we had a really big DDoS attack one day, and sort of a pain in the butt to be reactive to that sort of thing. So I made a little log reader. We were already kind of capturing log data, but something to really help me figure out kind of where that traffic was coming from and what was happening. So this is all LiveCode, I think Indy and above, because I've got the map widget and I'm using TSNet, but a lot of the stuff could be adjusted for community base. Let me pull up stacks or scripts, try to remember how this is set up. Okay, so this is actually a two-part system. So it's a Windows IIS server that this is actually running on. Oops. And so what I have that doing, I have that Windows server every day. I've got a cron job running that looks at the entire TXT file, which could be megabytes and megabytes of all the traffic. And I sort it out into JSON files with specific tasks. So I look for some WordPerfect stuff. I look for some PHP stuff. I look for anything that's not a GET statement because it's a web server. So it should all be GET. Nobody should be really posting, or if they are, I should be kind of taking a look at it. Anything that's zip, because we don't really have anything that's archived. So that's usually some sort of a hack attempt. This is one of our professors. It's got something special on the side that he wants me to keep an eye on. And CFM are Cold Fusion files, because we also run a lot of Cold Fusion apps. So just sort of keep an eye on all that traffic. So the server every day looks at this giant report of IP addresses and stuff, splits it up into all those so that I can go in and look at them individually. So there's nothing in this one. I set a threshold of 2, so any traffic in this zip log that had more than 2 occurrences, show me. Because I don't care about some of the traffic. I need to set sort of a limit. Usually 2 is a good limit for the WordPress. So on this particular day, there was 4,578 unique visitors, unique IP addresses to the server. This is where I am currently. That's my ping. These are 15 different logs from the total of 88 there that meet my criteria of WordPress or a blog or something else that's kind of a trigger keyword. So this is kind of normal traffic, not too worried. But what I'm doing is for each one of these IP addresses, using 3 different API services to fetch geolocation data. So it is, I'm basically triangulating the location between, in this case, Holland, and Holland. So that kind of makes sense. Using the map widget, I can zoom in to see how sort of tight that is. But any of these places that I click on, it's gonna just take me to that location. So I can sort of zoom out and see. Sometimes it works good. Sometimes it's a really big triangle. But this is all done. Let's see. So I've tried to comment this as well as I could sort of maintain it, but I've got 3 different services. So I've got this IP/API, I've got a IPstack.com, an extremeIPlookup.com. And so I think it looks like one of them I had to get a free key for. None of these are paid for. They're all reasonable request limits that I've never hit or ran into a problem with. So that's all that this is doing. It's kind of similar to what you were talking about, I think, with the xAPI stuff, is it's looking for the specific, let's see, these are pretty basic. They're just posting to a URL. So it's this, you just add this IP address in, whatever it is, with your access key, and it will spit you out the data you're looking for. And I'm just reading that in inside of LiveCode. So let me just add one in here. So this is the JSON that's getting spit back from the API. I thought that was one of the I think that's one of our internal servers, so I guess it's not facing out, so it's not hitting. But this is the type of data that comes back in, then just parse that out. That's what's feeding this. If something looks sketchy, I report it. So reporting uses another API service. There's a couple common types. Usually it's like a SQL attempt or injection attempt, just a basic PHP sort of attack. Let's see, ban this IP. This is using Abuse IP DB, another free service that each one of these categories is its own sort of category on that service that they track, and I've just hard coded those values in. So posting to their points the particular data they're looking for lets me report an IP as being malicious, just feeding them a little bit of JSON. So LiveCode is really good about converting arrays back and forth, making it super easy. And a lot of the post stuff, this one's not as complicated because it's not dealing with OAuth and it's not dealing with headers really. It's kind of just a basic key in the URL. I don't know if xAPI is quite that straightforward. I want to say it's got 1 or 2 more steps than that, but that's just a basic example of LiveCode sort of doing that thing and doing a lot of it on the fly. I was just going through that list it was hitting up those APIs, pulling that data back, figuring out where on the map that is, moving the map to show me.
Was that using HTTPS at all?
Most of them were. Looks like, yeah, most of the, and I've had that happen a couple times where they've just changed their API requirements. They've beefed them up, or so something just stops working all of a sudden, and it ends up being like 2 lines of code that need to be changed to something else. So, but yeah, that is HTTPS. It's LiveCode without the TSNet even. It's just a one-click to include the SSL library for LiveCode. I've never had problems with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, really great. Yeah, we can see it. Sorry, Brian. I was just trying to understand what it was that you were trying to do here. So it sounds like you're trying to provide a user interface where the user can enter in their endpoint, their username and password, and then you're trying to take that information and translate it into maybe like a, let's say like a sample request schema or something that then LiveCode can use.
I would say that was formatted code, probably not encoded, but it was formatted for JavaScript. So you're just passing that on to the browser.
Brian, this is Helen. Hello. Could the test, or the 3 to 5 minute lesson, could it be an ecosystem with a video and a PDF file as part of the lesson to measure, like with using the verbs for the video, start, stop, pause. I forget all the verbs associated with a video. And then opening a PDF, closing it. I'm not sure what those verbs would be to test the LRP. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for the video, this is Martin. For video, yeah, you can set up a player, you can start it, you can stop it, you can command it. You can either do it by script, so you can make the video start and stop by a script, or when the user starts and stops it. And when the user starts and stops it, the player sends a message. So play started, play stopped. So soon as that message is sent from the player, then LiveCode could pick that up and say, okay, I need to create a statement with play started or play stopped. So it would be easy. It's a quick, direct way of doing those, and the other verbs too. Like the player has more functions than the video profile has verbs. As far as the PDF, there is a PDF library, just like there's a a web browser widget. Tried to combine all those three words into one. And so there's things like I think you can scroll to a certain part of the page, you can do different things. And I'm sure you could query that. So if someone scrolled it, it might send a message. So I haven't used that, but both of those things could be accomplished. And I think Brian's where he's going with this part of the agenda. I think that's a good time. Like we've done a lot of demos of this is what it can do, but I think it's better to say what's our final product that we want to do. So if you have an idea of like a neat kind of interactive piece that you have a goal for, I want this kind of activity and this is the kind of results I want out of it, that would be a good discussion and bring it over to where we want to go with it. And then the live coder heavy types can go back and say, oh, okay, we'll look into that and then report back on, what all the options are and maybe do demos the next time. And so then it's more being led by the content creators, right? So you and other people who are instructional designers, other people who are teachers, those are the ones I think that should have an equal voice to be able to say where we're going with this, because it's better to have a direction to go with, because we can demonstrate all the possible possibilities, but not really have anywhere that we're developing a product.
And Martin, this is Helen. That was real helpful explanation. Thank you. And when you first mentioned about the video profile, did you have a subject in mind, or is that something that this team will brainstorm? Like, do we want a lesson that's on xAPI LiveCode, or could it be a compliant lesson? Did you have a content or a subject in mind?
I was more just interested in the just getting something for the video to do. So I didn't have a specific lesson. And if there's some area that you work in and that you had an idea for, then that would be great, because then it would be something probably more people could see an application to their own field, right? Because if they, like, so what's your background? Like, what kind of educational stuff do you do? Or
I'm an instructional designer. I work with the publishing tools like Storyline, Articulate, Rise 360, videos, just a diverse set of tools in a corporate setting.
Okay. And are there things that you feel like you wish you could do, but they're just restricted when you're trying to work with video? Is there some sort of limitations that those tools have that you'd like to get around?
Yes. For example, Storyline and Captivate, they already have built-in xAPI statements that they generate, but they can't tell, let's say, for example, if there is a topic or a learning point that is a minute or two in the video, we can't tell whether or not someone has actually stopped to read it. So maybe something on the screen said, please pause, read whatever statement, something like that, just to expand the storyline. Or
yeah, no, and that's something you could easily do in LiveCode, like just using because you could start a timer when they started the video, and then when they stopped it, you could start making points of when, okay, they stopped it at this time, they restarted it at that time, they stopped it at this time. There's another thing in the player called callbacks. So you can have a preset list of time points, and that the player can take actions when those messages get reached, when that time point gets reached, right? So you could have pauses built into the video So if you wanted something like a quiz that's on video instead of in text, it could go up to a point, they'd show a little portion of the video, and then you could have the person ask a question, and then the video would stop itself. And then the people would have to respond before the video could play again. So you could actually control that. And then for each action, then you would figure out what would my xAPI statement be. So it could be, Andrew responded to question 1. It took it, and then it took him, 15 seconds to respond, and then Andrew started or restarted video, and then Andrew started. So you'd have preset time points, so you don't have to depend on the user to actually stop the video. But then you have to then they would restart it. So it would be even a more, you would more guarantee that they would review the content. But you could do it the other way, like you were saying, you could leave it up to the user. When they stop the video, LiveCode sends a message from the player that then you'd have a handler that logs that little piece of information, and then from there, that little bit of information, it starts to create that, and then it can, like I was saying, it could log each stopping point, duration between the stop and the start, all of that kind of stuff, and it could be, we could figure out, what type of xAPI statement we wanted to create from that as our end product that would be sent to the LRS. And once you have sort of those two, the activity and the statement that you want to make, then we figure out the coding of how we construct that statement, whether it be the method that Brian's using by leveraging existing libraries to create the statements and existing services, or whether we design it from scratch within LiveCode. Either way, it works.
Helen, can you talk a little bit more about what you would like to do with the PDF?
Well, one of the, and I'm not familiar with how this could be done, but in so many cases, you have learners who get information either from a website or a PDF or from a formal Captivate storyline. And it would be great to kind of capture that ecosystem that the learner opened up the PDF. We can't tell if they read the PDF, but because sometimes that's supplementary information, more detailed, and it's only one piece of the puzzle. So to be able to capture that the learner, completed the formal training and then they used the PDF on the job. Maybe that's the performance support, or they visited a website.
Okay, because I was a little concerned. Martin mentioned the PDF widget. The PDF widget in LiveCode is a business level and above.
Oh.
So I think we'll want to look for some solution that's probably indie or community based.
Okay.
One thing we can do though is you can still view a PDF through the browser widget, because the browser widget is just a browser engine. So just like you could open up a PDF or a JPEG or any web-based file in any web browser, we can do that inside of a browser widget inside of LiveCode. So you could still accomplish some of those goals, it seems. You could have it hidden until clicked, so you could verify that they opened it. You could track how long it was open for. You could probably capture scroll. So if it was more than one page, you should be able to still get some of that data, because it's in the browser widget, probably using more like JavaScript callbacks or something like that. But yeah, you should be able to track some of that data still.
Excellent.
So I have a question. I don't know if this makes sense or not, but I know that in some of the trainings that I've worked on or that I've helped with, usually like I've provided like links to resources. So they could be PDFs, they could be other websites, or they could be a lot of other things. What I think sort of was mentioned earlier was, instead of just capturing analytics around a single PDF, what I would be curious about is maybe just if we have a page of resources, which ones they actually clicked on.
Yes.
So,
Excellent. Oh,
no, that's okay. So I was just thinking of making it a little bit simpler. So instead of worrying about the PDF, like a single PDF specifically, just having a page with links, and just when they click on a link, just sending a statement that so that we know that they clicked on a certain link and they accessed it, which I think is a bit simpler.
that's a great idea. Izzy, this is Helen. That was a great idea, because that is the ecosystem, right? Those supporting resources to see if the learner has, reached out and, oh, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah, because like the other thing that I was sort of thinking about, to kind of make this a complete lesson, I guess, is, traditionally you're going to have somebody, let's say a learner, go through, let's say they're going to have to read something, maybe they'll watch a video, and maybe do one other sort of learning interaction. And then you want to actually assess what they've learned, right? So we're probably going to want to add in some sort of a quizzing element in there. So maybe like, let's say 2 to 3 questions that we'd also then send xAPI statements about. So that way it's just, let's say 3 actual learning resources or materials, and then let's say 2 or 3 questions afterwards. And then that sort of, I think, is a pretty good enough scope, because I think the video one will probably take up the most time to implement. Does that make sense?
And I have a question. What tool do you think could be used for that assessment?
Oh, I was just thinking of just displaying it just like as HTML or something
on a
like
web
that.
page.
Yeah,
Okay.
just on a web page. I think that's fine.
But you could easily do the assessment within LiveCode. You could have radio buttons set up with the questions.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that was the idea, I guess, like within LiveCode to just have a page that was allowed them. Yeah, you have multiple choice question.
Yeah, or a series of them, and maybe load them in a like eventually like a JSON document, but you'd have question, answer, question, like question, options, and then somewhere it indicates what the correct result is within your data, and then the LiveCode page just takes that data and then plugs it into the right fields, and has the radio buttons and the button to indicate you're done your selection and then you're moving to the next one.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought might be interesting is, like I did this, an organization I worked for, they did this certification. So everyone had to take probably about 10 hours of these courses. And almost everyone I talked to, like I'd say, and you got paid 10 hours, once you completed it. This is for freelance people to do it. Almost everyone I talked to just kept clicking the answers until they got the right answer and went on, and didn't read the materials or didn't watch the videos. So I was thinking, how do you prevent that? Or how do you know they're doing that or not doing that? But the one thing, I mean, it would be easy enough programmatically to figure that out. But the one thing I was thinking that would be interesting is, do people actually go back when they got the question? So you could see, like, they opened question 1, and then they said, oh, I think that was in the video. And then they can go back and watch the video again, or go and look at the PDF, because then it looks like they're actually engaged with it, rather than, and it's not a test of their memory, it's a test of whether or not they're engaged with the material and learning it. So that could be, it's just an option of how you could gather information about how they are using the lesson.
Yeah, and I think that you could probably just add an experienced statement to every, let's say, every page, like once it loads, so that way, no matter what page a user is on, or goes to or goes back to, they'll always see that experience statement. So if they're in the quiz, they get that experience of the quiz page, and then if they decide to go back to the video, they'll get another experience statement for the video. So you could see, by looking at the user's journey through all of their experience statements, you'll see exactly where, what sort of order they look at the content in.
Yeah. And again, with the video profile, there's things like seek to. So if they remembered, okay, that was towards the end, I just want to look at that, they would drag the video to 75% of it, and they'll get us to do that. LiveCode will send a message, time changed, current time changed, and it will say what you can get the time. So then you translate that into users seek to 7 minutes and 30 seconds, and then user played. So it's like experienced, but you could also have within that the actual interaction with the video. But that could actually, some of that could be within the experienced, and it could be, and I don't know the difference again between extensions and context, but you could maybe put some of that data in within the experienced statement and just give that detail if you needed that. I don't know, but
no, I think the better way is to like, the experience statement is just going to be when the page loads, so you know that they've gotten to the page. Okay. And then you would have a separate statement for anything that they do within the video. Okay. Because that way the experience is going to be consistent across every page. Okay. And then anything relating to the video will just be on that video page.
Okay.
And extensions are can be for either activities or a result or objects. I think that's true. So you can have you can add extensions to whether result, context, or objects.
Thanks.
Sure.
Well, I have a question, maybe of Martin. Have you worked with, I'm looking at myself personally, in the program I work in, we access YouTube videos, and they're done out in a browser outside of the actual LiveCode application.
Mm-hmm.
I've been wanting to put within LiveCode in the web widget, browser widget, and show them there. And with that, interact with the JavaScript. YouTube has a JavaScript library for interacting with the videos that are showing in the browser. And I've messed with it a little bit, but I've not been able to crack that. And but they do show that there are callbacks and such in YouTube, that in their API, that you can jump to different parts of the video, also get the time that the video has played to, and basically provide the user a way to interact with the video from within LiveCode, and also to measure where the progress of the video is and what they've watched. And because otherwise, if it's a video file that you have, you can just play it within LiveCode and do all the things that Martin was describing within LiveCode. Hide the controller, and then, in other words, because one of the things about showing a video within LiveCode, and then you're doing callbacks where when it reaches a certain point of the video, it sends a message that you can capture and do something. So saying they watched up to this point, they got, and that would send a callback at that point, like at 5 minutes, and you say they watched to 5 minutes. But if they've dragged the controller past 5 minutes, it reached that callback point, and they actually haven't watched, they just dragged the controller. And that's kind of a shortcut, that we want them to not have the ability to. So you would hide the controller and then do everything, control it within LiveCode.
Yeah.
The actual video play and stop, and give them a play button and a pause button and so on, but not they can't drag the controller. But back to YouTube, has anyone worked with that kind of thing? And Brian, you were showing some JavaScript, LiveCode interacting with JavaScript within the web browser. Has anybody got far with that?
Just if I can answer a bit. Yeah, so that's the challenge with YouTube, is YouTube tries really hard not to let you access the video, right? You can't download it unless you pay now you can with, I think, the pro level, you can actually download videos, but they really, like, as soon as, it used to be you could find the link for the video and get it, and then they change their code and then find the link, because that's their whole business, is owning the videos. But what you're describing, like, I don't know what kind of messages it sends by JavaScript, but if there are messages within the browser widget, you can add your own JavaScript handlers to that browser. So if you knew it sent a message like play stopped and it had some parameters in JavaScript, you could add those to the browser, and then they would, like, you could be able to communicate between the browser. I've never done it, but I just thought that this is a possibility. So if you knew, had a list of those and could test what happens when you, like how LiveCode then returns information out from there. Like, there's probably a return statement or something that when it processed that handler, then it fired out another message to LiveCode, which LiveCode could then process, which would be very cool. Because then it would solve that problem of the walled garden that YouTube kind of has, where they've got lots of content, but you don't really have access. Things like, what's it, of all the speakers that you can watch all of these great speeches. It's TED Talks. Those are freely available in MP4 format. So if you wanted to do something, you could just put a link straight to that and have it in the player. But YouTube, or I'm sure Vimeo is the same, or things like that, they wall them off, so you can't really access the file directly. You have to play them through their interface. But having their interface in our widget browser with our JavaScript handlers, you could then have a way to interact. And then I don't know again how you would then send JavaScript into the widget, but that would just take some research if that's possible. But I haven't done that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Right. YouTube changed their API. Oh, it's been at least 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And you definitely are using their player within the window. But it's still, I think, a useful method. And so I'm trying, like you're saying, Brian, yeah, that's what we do. We have these URLs that we show, but I would like to show internally as opposed to externally. I did play with that, and I found that if you actually the physical size of the player window will make it smaller. You make it small enough that YouTube reflows their content as if you're watching it on a mobile device. And it takes out the columns on the right. It just basically shows the video window, and there's stuff below. There's still stuff on the window. It's much more simplified than watching a desktop normally. Yeah.
it also, like, I was just looking at the YouTube API while we were chatting, and from what I can tell, it doesn't really focus on the user experience. It focuses on the video itself. So you get information about, let's say, you know, how many plays the video has, or what category the video is in, but not about how the user who's viewing the video is interacting with the video, it seems. I'm not sure, like, from a quick look at the YouTube API, that's what I could gather.
I believe there is a current time message in JavaScript that the video has done this, played this time or through times. It's the running time, and I think there is one where you can jump to another time in the based on JavaScript again. So there is a good amount of control, also, you know, messaging coming back from the video, what's going on with it. So that was an idea, and it's also something I'm interested in. But as far as for this xAPI, I think that would be probably to advance a step. I think just having a regular player and the regular YouTube, the regular LiveCode player is very controllable and gives the callbacks, give you a lot of information about what the video has been done there. Right. It's a good question. No. So at some point I should show what I've been working. You've seen that, Brian, right? At the very beginning of this cohort. It's a music education program, and we have a lot of licensed audio recordings that we license from record companies, and some videos. But when you're teaching, this is classical music, there's lots of material that we could never license. There's just too much that we wouldn't teach from. So we're just basically showing YouTube video, because YouTube has themselves licensed, you know, they've worked out the licensing with the record companies and also performances and such. And so we send the user off in their browser to a particular one that's there. And then, you know, we keep track of dead links and stuff and refresh them and go. So it expands the capability of what we do far beyond that we can create ourselves. And
I think, kind of building on what Izzy had to say about the YouTube API, from what I can kind of gather with a quick look at it, it does seem to be more kind of marketing analytic and not as much user experience. And I think it's going to be even less so if you're not the content owner. So I think without being that level of YouTube, it might be a struggle to use YouTube for that purpose. I like the idea of it, but I think you're going to have to pull it off with some sort of a self-hosted solution.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, like as an example, other universities, like for example Rutgers, where I used to work, they use Kaltura, video streaming. Yeah, Kaltura video streaming server, and that's where they host their videos. And I know that they are now Neuro, I think, and so and they've actually implemented xAPI functionality. directly. So, you know, if you went with something like that, it would be relatively simple to do that. But, you know, as you said, the licensing costs for that would be, I mean, just prohibitive, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, we're using the Amazon Web Service, AWS, to host our material.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, I mean, AWS has its own API that you might be able to make some sense out of, but yeah. Yes, I think, Brian, yeah, it's Neuro. It's whatever we use for the cohort.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's the same platform. Yeah, I'm still like a little bit iffy on the sort of the usefulness of the metrics around the PDF. I think having the video and maybe some other you know, another piece of content plus, you know, a list of resources that are just hyperlinks, and then as they click on things, we just send statements out to see what they clicked on, and then maybe a brief quiz, 2 or 3 questions, and that's it. Just so basically there would be maybe like 6 screens total, 6 different screens to create. That's it. I think though that would make sense because it's kind of limiting the scope of what we're doing. And I think that the video piece is probably going to be the most difficult. But that way we don't get too bogged down in just like a whole lot of different, you know.
Some like there's different pieces to the project, and I think different stages, and one is what kind of content are we going to do, like what could we get from, say, loading a PDF in a web browser, given what LiveCode can do with it, right? What kind of content could we give with video, like what kind of like statements can come from LiveCode first. What kind of statements can come from LiveCode? How much control can we have over the PDF? How much control can we have over the video? Different options. And then the last part is the questions and answers, like how could we do that? So what I was thinking is we could maybe sort of people who wanted to work on that, like I could work on the video one, people who want to work on the PDF one could sort of do proof of concept, little things for a future meeting. But at the same time, the people who want to work on the content part can say, okay, this is what we want to plug into that. So that thing that Izzy was just describing, the 6 pages, so the what kind of information, if there's a particular topic we want to cover, if there's particular, and whether we create the information ourselves or we repurpose something that already exists, that'd be another decision. But I think giving a little proof of, like, so I say, oh no, for sure we could do it in video, that's no problem. And if I can do it, then that's fine. If I can't, then you can say I told you so. It's not possible. But it might be a good way to sort of, you know, try the different options that we've done. Just sort of do little samples of, you know, this is what we could do. And then the next thing is, okay, we can get that information how do we then turn that into an XAPI statement and then send it to the LRX, right? So that's sort of a second stage of what I would see.
And I
Okay.
think that idea, Izzy, about the links really represents an ecosystem or an ecosystem, because those links could be to another web page, it could be to a doc file, it could be to multiple places.
Right. But I think to sort of Martin's point, I think, I don't know, I guess like I'm trying to limit the scope.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think Martin's right in maybe trying to explore some of the various options before we immediately, like I'm trying to do, is just immediately exclude them. Maybe it's worth trying to see what you can get out of a PDF first, and if you can't, and then at least we'll have a fallback, and we'll just say, all right, well, we'll go with the links only and not have that instead. Or maybe there's a way to include a link to a PDF in those lists of links, and then when they click on that PDF, then you can gather the whatever stats you want out of it. But I think, maybe it makes sense, like Martin said, to just try things out, see what you can get, see what you can't get, and go from there.
And have a time limit on it. So like, have something the next week and say, is this possible or not? Because then we can say, okay, this is the direction then. That's not possible. That's possible. This for sure is our basic core stuff for doing the questions and answers. And so that we have at least a scope that then everyone can focus on and not all be going off in different directions for 8 weeks and then all of a sudden scramble the last week to try and come up with something that works. A pitch day, we'll pitch our different options and then people vote on which idea they want to go.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
It's just an object. It's a regular LiveCode object. So it pre-exists the widget architecture that came just lately, like 8.0 or something like that. Yeah, I didn't realize it was business, which it means you have to pay $1,500 something a year to use it. Whereas consumer, that's just your annual license. The consumer, or not the consumer, the open source one is free, but with the free ones you get less options. But your idea of using the browser to display PDF is great. Like that could be the workaround. It may not. It might be too limited to. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I could do a little demo of that to say this is what, based on maybe what Helen was saying, or if Helen could say draw, like just do like a quick drawing of what she would like to see and what kind of storyboards or whatever to see if I could actually do that. Or if Joan or if Izzy or anyone else who's doing that kind of stuff has some ideas, and then whether, you know, I could try and do that with that, someone if they're interested in doing the PDF part, or just what Izzy was talking about as having the core thing, like if there's different pieces of that, we can sort of say this is what it could look like, and then we could see how complex it would be to implement or not.
Yeah, my goal or idea, let's see, it's pretty simple. I just wanted to recreate the X Api Bookmarklet. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that, but I wanted to recreate that. I can show it. I have a screenshot. Recreate that on a mobile phone. It's pretty straightforward. And I wanted to use mobile and have the app work offline, and when the app is back online, have the data automatically be sent to the LRS.
And the book, what's the bookmarklet? Bookmarklet.
The bookmarklet. What does it look like? Okay. All right, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, I'll share it really quickly. Oh, there it is. This is it. I don't know if you can see it. I can try to make it bigger, but or maybe not. There we go. My laptop is slowing down and dying, but basically the idea, it was designed to work in a web browser. So if you're browsing the web, for example, like I was trying to learn web programming and I go do different tutorials. If I got to the page where the tutorial was, I could just open up this bookmarklet, select, I think like 6 different verbs in here, and rate the page. So this was the name of the page that I went to. This would be the verb I wanted to choose. And the rating would be from 1 to 5. And then that's it. It just goes off into the LRF. So it's pretty straightforward. And I wanted to do that because sometimes I would do things offline, like I'd go to a meetup somewhere, and I wanted to, okay, this is a learning activity for me and it's not online. I may not have, you know, I might not be using mobile data or that. So that's pretty straightforward.
This is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's just, so basically it's just a way, not necessarily like it's making a bookmark off of a web page that you could put a web page on there, but it could be something like, we went for a hike in the woods and I found, you know, these 3 types of flowers or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And you get credit for it.
Yeah, like I attended a meeting or a conference or something like that.
And there's that experience, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it from more of a personal development approach than learning and development at a corporation or, you know, formal education in higher ed or K-12.
Excellent.
Yeah. No, I think, like, I don't, like the actual design of the interface of the application shouldn't be very difficult, right? And then just how to, once you're reconnected, and that's that LRS library would be the same thing we'd have to use. How do you go from that? So you've got your verb, your all of that, and then we need an xAPI library that then has LiveCode send it out, right? Whether it's using doing it within LiveCode or somehow taking advantage of an existing service or something like that. So that would be, so what we work on that library piece, yours could use whatever else we could use so that you could, like, so it's sort of everyone's sort of leveraging that same piece of
Mhm.
code. So that would be interesting, I think, for showing that, just sort of that process of developing the library, but then different uses for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, okay. Yep.
I've got a hard stop, but thank you, Brian, for hosting again, and thanks everyone. This was a great discussion. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. But we have to put Joan on the first of the agenda so we can
Yes.
do her thing. Next.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay. See you all.
See
Nice
you
to
later.
you all.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Brian.